So good news, I drew an archery elk hunt in the Gila with my brothers this year in New Mexico. And so really excited. And as I begin to prepare for a hunt, I remember what it was like to prepare for my first archery hunt ever. It was overwhelming, it was intimidating, you're confused, you don't know exactly, you kind of have an idea where to start, even if you talk with a technician. Some of them are helpful, some of them are really unhelpful. The exact opposite, they just jerks think you should know everything right off the bat. Not all of them are like that, so. But I've definitely had my experiences with both their people, right? So I thought that I would do a video for everyone who has never bow hunted and you're just getting into it, you just drew your first bow hunt, or maybe you're a couple of archery hunts in and you're still a little confused on certain things. So these are the 10 things I wish I had known before I drew my first archery hunt. I hope it's okay. I decided to do it outside today, so you might hear a bird or a plane overhead at times, or you might see dogs in the background at times, but it's super nice today, so I just thought switch it up and let's get outside. Also, if you've seen any of my how-to videos, you know that I need my laptop because I don't want to miss anything. I want to make sure I cover all 10 things for you guys today in this video. Got to leave on the neck. Okay, so number one, a lot of the components on a bow are customizable. Okay, and when I say customizable, what I mean is you can interchange them with a different type of that component. And this video isn't going to be to go in detail over what the components of a bow are. If you want me to do a video on that, let me know in the comments, and I'm glad to do that. But for example, some of the components you can switch out with a different style would be your sight. So there's like a single pin sight where you just have one pin and you adjust it to the exact yardage you want. This one is a 5-pin. I have 5 pins in here, but I can also adjust after 60. So my last pin goes to 60 or 70, 60. And then I can adjust with this knob here. I can dial in all the way up to 150 yards, the exact yardage of my target. So this is customizable. What your arrow is resting on, that's customizable. So this is a drop away rest. So I'll show you this up close. But when the arrow hits the rest, it goes down and it just drops away. Your stabilizer, there's so many different kinds of stabilizers on the market, and you can do a lot of different things with them. Mine is, you can see, is not centered. It's actually off centered, and that's because I have a lot of weight on this side of my bow. And so what this is doing is it's making sure that my bow doesn't want to lean this way or this way. And it also is making sure it doesn't want to lean forward or back. It's trying to keep my bow centered right in the middle and level for me. It's trying to help me as I hold it, right? So when I hold it out, pretty stable. It doesn't want to do this or this naturally or forward or back. So those are some of the things that are, what I'm saying, customizable. You can change them out. Your quiver, there's lots of different quivers. I have my quiver kind of in a traditional sense on a compound bow up and down. You can actually mount your quiver here and it goes like this, acting as a stabilizer. So, you know, there's a lot of components on a bow, and a lot of them can be interchanged with different types of that component. And so I just want you to keep that in mind, and that can be helpful. You know, if you're having issues with a certain type of component on your bow. For example, this was my first bow, and it came like this. It's $300, and it came with everything. It came with a stabilizer. It came with my my rest for my arrow, which this one is called a whisker biscuit. I don't know the history of why that's called that. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. And it came with this sight, and I had 4 pins in it, and that was it. No adjusting. That was it. So, you know, that's how this one came. And it even came with a quiver. So when you buy just kind of like a setup, it comes a certain way, and you can change out those components or not. It's up to you, you know. But I wish someone would have told me a little bit more in detail, and maybe they did. And when you're first starting out, you just don't know enough to even know what you want. So this was the bow that I took on my very first archery hunt ever, and it was an antelope hunt. God, I wish I had had this bow on that archery antelope hunt and know what I know now. But, you know, for me, when I first got into archery, I drew an archery tag, so I'm going to buy a bow. And that was the thing. I'm going to put it in for an archery hunt. If I draw it, I'll buy a bow. And that's what I did. And so that kind of flung me into the world of archery hunting. And I'm glad it did. So no regrets on that, you know. But this setup compared to this setup, it's night and day. And not just because of the expense, but I've customized everything on here for what I want. My sight, my rest, my stabilizer. This bow is exactly the way I want it right now. And it just makes me more confident in my hunt and more confident when I'm practicing, okay? So that's number one. Number two, when you buy a new bow, you have to have it tuned. And the simplest way I could probably explain tuning is it's the adjustments that need to be made to your bow to make sure that your arrows are gonna fly correctly, okay? And if you're not a bow technician, don't try to do this on your own. Wherever you buy your bow from, if they're a good retail store in archery, they should tune it for you. And so you're spending money there, you're investing into their business. Ask them, hey, you know, can you paper tune it for me? Can you make sure my arrows are flying straight? Can you make sure my arrows aren't tailing like this, you know? And so when you hear paper tune, what they do is they literally shoot your arrow through a paper. I mean, the paper's 6 inches in front of your arrow. They shoot it and they want to make sure that your arrow is flying straight through that piece of paper. And so the tear should be, if you put a broadhead on there, you should see, or the fletchings, you should put a field point, you should see the fletchings like that on your arrow, right? So when you look at an arrow, and you turn it towards you, you see the fletchings, right? You see these 3 fletchings. And that's literally what you see and this hole through the paper when your bow's paper tuned. It should be perfect. Now, some bows are not capable of paper tune. So what should I say? Some bows are better at paper tuning than others. And this bow, I bought it because it is, you know, no matter if people shoot other types of bows, they agree, this bow here is highly tunable. And so I bought that because, you know, accuracy, I don't want to have to second guess that. You know, that's on me. And if my bow is ruining my accuracy, then I don't feel as confident. So I wanted the most tunable bow possible, and that's why I got this one. And so the paper tuning is extremely important, and that's something that you need to keep in mind. You need to get your bow tuned when you buy it. Number 3 is when you buy a new bow and you take it home, you need to shoot it a lot. Shoot it until your strings actually, what happens when you shoot your bow is your strings are going to loosen on you. They're going to relax, right? And that's just a material thing. It's just going to happen. And when that happens, it can and probably will throw your bow out of tune. And so your arrows are going to fly weird. It's not going to shoot right. So after you shoot it, they're going to tell you, you know, shoot 100 arrows through it, shoot 300 arrows through it. When you do that, you take it back. I took mine back as soon as I noticed it was shooting funny. It didn't sound right. Something was weird. And so what I did was I took my bow back. They re-tightened the strings, I believe is what the bow tech told me. The bow technician told me. And after he did that, I brought it home. I shot it there at the shop too, but I brought it home. It was shooting great. So just keep that in mind. Your strings are going to relax over time, and you may have to take it back to your technician to get those adjusted again. Number 4, your arrows may fly different when you're going from field points to broadheads. So right now on this arrow, I have what are called field points or field tips. And they're just, you know, look, check it out. You can unscrew it. And this is what they look like, okay? And these are going to fly, you know, the aerodynamics on these field points are slightly different than a broadhead. You know, a broadhead is going to look different, it's going to fly different. So what you need to do, keep this here in case I need to talk about it again, but what you need to do is practice a lot with your field tips. Shoot it and shoot it and shoot and shoot. Hundreds and shoot thousands of arrows if you can before your hunt, right? One of the things you can control is practice, the amount of practice you have. And so shoot a lot of arrows, and then 2 weeks before your hunt, what I did is I went in, I picked my broadhead, and the tech said, all right, now let's tune your bow for your broadhead. So there in the shop, we put the broadheads on, and I shot into a broadhead target, and I shot, you know, 20 arrows or so. And we could see that for whatever reason, I just lucked out. My broadheads were flying within half an inch, quarter of an inch of my field point. So I told him, just leave it alone. I'll hunt like that. It's good. There was just a slight drop from my broadhead to my field point, but that's something you should be aware of. And I didn't know that on my first hunt. So I just shot a bunch of field points through this bow, and then I went and bought broadheads, and I hunted like that. And I have no idea, you know, how that affected my shot. I mean, I know it did, but I don't know if it was drastic, if it was 6 inches or if it was half an inch. I don't know. So I didn't know that on my first hunt. So keep that in mind. Okay. Number 5, there are so many different kinds of broadheads, really. So just pick one and use that for your first hunt. And consistency is huge, right? So what you don't want to do is pick a broadhead go out on your hunt, 3 days in, you're like, oh, I don't like the way this is flying, and go pick another broadhead, because again, your tuning can be thrown off. So just be consistent. Pick something, whether you know it's the best or not. There's so many different opinions on. I like fixed broadheads, right? They're just fixed blades, and but some people like the ones that open as you shoot it or as it penetrates. I mean, for me, I've found success with the fixed broadhead, so I don't have a reason to go to try something else. I really don't. But whatever you pick, just be consistent and use that your whole hunt, because you know you've tuned your bow to that broadhead and you're ready to go. Number 6, there are targets for field points and targets for broadheads. So make sure you're using the right ones depending on what you're shooting. You don't want to shoot a broadhead through a field point target because you're going to tear it up really bad. You're going to tear up a broadhead target really bad with your broadheads. And what I found is I use ones that are unsharpened. You can buy, like in the broadhead I like to use, they sell some that are for practice, so they don't sharpen the edges, and so my target stays a little more intact as I'm practicing. Number 7, practice in the gear you're going to be hunting or shooting in, right? This is so huge, and I'm grateful. This is one of the things that was told to me before my first archery hunt. Make sure you're practicing in what you're going to be hunting in. Okay, and a good example is, let's say you're practicing in the heat of summer, right? And you feel real confident. Well, you get to your hunt and it's 10 degrees when you get out of the tent in the morning, or your camper, or whatever you're in, and you're freezing. So what do? You put on a giant jacket, right? That's what you're gonna do. Well, you see an animal in front of you and you pull back and you're realizing you don't know, you can't pull back all the way, or the jacket's in your way, or the jacket's hitting your string, or whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden, you don't know how to shoot it, right? You can't shoot, maybe it's literally in the way. So this is something that happened to me, thankfully, in my practice. It didn't happen while I was actually hunting. But I had bought a jacket, and I wanted to see how it felt when I shot with it. So I pulled back in practice, and what happened was I had zipped it up to here, while the ends curl out, right, on a jacket. So when I pulled it back, I was holding it here, the jacket flipped over my string, and then when I shot my arrow, I mean, it wasn't even close on the target. It flew like bad. It was really bad. So that taught me a few things, right? One, I need to make sure there's no obstructions in the way of my string when I'm shooting. And 2, if I wanted to hunt with that jacket, I was gonna have to figure out a way to avoid it hitting my strings. So what I ended up doing was I zipped it all the way up, and now it's up here on my mouth, which was fine. It was covering all the way up to my mouth. But even that kind of changed how I was going to hold on my draw. So again, this is it's super important. Whatever you're going to be hunting in, if you're going to be hunting in 4 layers, try to practice in that at least a few times. And because it's going to help you, you're going to know exactly how it feels on your hunt to draw back with the clothes you're wearing, the gear you're wearing, everything you're wearing, and it's going to make you more successful. It's going to give you a better shot at actually getting an animal. Okay, number 8 is practice shooting in different positions. And this was another thing that I didn't hear on my first hunt. I heard it on my second hunt, but I wish I would have heard it on my first hunt. So a good bow hunter finally told me, hey, you need to practice shooting from your butt. You need to practice shooting on your knee. From your knee, you need to practice shooting standing up. You need to practice crawling and then shooting. I mean, just think of your hunting scenarios, all the different hunting scenarios you could be in, and that's what you want to do. Number 9, don't push the animal. And I had heard this, but you know, when you're going on your first or second archery hunt, no one expects you to get anything. Let's be real, right? And so I was on this archery hunt in January. This was only my second tag in January. I'm talking, see, now it's April or May, so just a few months ago. So no one's expecting you to really kill anything, right? So they're not telling you how to respond after you've made your shot. So this buck, you know, we spotted this group of deer, me and my brother Mike. I was able to get into position on this buck at 60 yards, and I ranged him at 59, 60, pulled back, put my 60 pin on him. I mean, I hit him. I couldn't have hit him any better. It was a perfect lung shot. So after the shot, what do you think I did? I grabbed my bow. I look at Mike. My arrows, the deer had vanished, right? But I saw lots of blood. I knew I hit it good. Lift my arms up. Woo! I'm celebrating. I'm looking at Mike. Yeah, I'm screaming. So that was my first mistake. Animals are obviously very skittish, right? You don't want to be screaming and shouting when you just shot something with an arrow. If you hit them with a rifle and they go down right away, oh, it's different, right? But with an arrow, I just scared him even further. But then I made the big mistake of waiting 3 minutes, and me and Mike are like, let's go get the animal. We went right to get him, right? So we're looking at huge gobs of blood on the floor, big chunks of blood. I knew I'd hit him real good. He was gonna die. I had wounded him in the vitals. Well, we finally get to this spot, and there's a ton of blood on the ground, and all of a sudden it stops. And I'm thinking, shoot. Long story short, we pushed the animal probably half a mile from where I'd actually shot it. And it was buried in sagebrush. How we found it, I'm telling you now, it was God. I have no other explanation. Just complete luck. It was insane. So I almost lost my first archery buck because I was impatient and I pushed it. Let your animal, when you do make the shot, and you're gonna make that shot, right? You're gonna make that shot one day. It's gonna happen. When you make the shot, be patient. Let your animal die. Give them some time, 30 minutes, an hour. I know some people will wait an hour and a half. Unless you see it fall down, you know, just assume that it's gonna take time to bleed out. So be patient, let it die, and then you can go get it after, and you won't have to worry like I did for 2 hours. We were looking for this buck, wondering, am I ever gonna find this buck? So I'm trying to save you that heartache, that anxiety, that stress. And finally, number 10, my last tip, is enjoy your first harvest, regardless of its trophy rank. Honestly, what I've come to see is any animal taken with a bow is so hard earned, right? Hunting is hard, period. But hunting with a bow, you're really challenging yourself. It's super hard. You got to get closer. I mean, typically when you take your shot, you can probably smell the animal. And that's how close you are. So when you make that shot, when you take your first archery animal, any big game animal, any animal, take the time to enjoy it in that moment. Celebrate with whoever you're with, and just realize what you've accomplished. It's a huge accomplishment. It's a huge feat, and it's not easy. So take some time and enjoy that moment. So these are the 10 things I wish someone would have shared with me before my first archery hunt. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully these will help better prepare you for your first archery hunt. If you did learn something, or if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and be sure to share this video with your hunting crew. I'll see you next time.